Okay. Hello, everyone. Good night. Hope everyone's having a good night. I think we will wait another minute or two and let everyone come on in to the room. It's a little disconcerting for me. I'm still a little bit new at this, so not being able to see you all. So I ask your indulgence. Another minute. Okay. I want to remind everyone that tonight's program is being recorded. So you'll be able to revisit the presentation or share it later on with people who may have missed it. Okay. All right. Well, it is officially 7 o'clock. We'll get started. I want to welcome everyone who's joined us this evening for a very special opportunity to learn and visit with, I will say, my cousins, my dear cousins, Valerie Gilpier and Emily Grodin. They will be discussing their book tonight, I Have Been Buried Under Years of Dust, a memoir of autism and hope. You're on Zoom, you're on Facebook and on YouTube. And as I said, you'll be, this is going to be recorded, so you'll have an opportunity to share or review it at a later time. My name is Carolyn Hoffman. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the director of the Sinai Temple Mental Health Center. I just want to, before we get started, give a little shout out to what I do here at Sinai Temple. The center was meant to open the conversation around the importance of mental health and move towards destigmatizing mental health struggles. I am a visible and accessible professional resource to all Sinai Temple members, staff, board members, and clergy. The establishment of this center speaks to the Temple's commitment to the understanding that our emotional life is essential to what makes us human, to our communal responsibility to respond compassionately when we are faced with challenges, and to promote practices that support positive mental health throughout our lives. We have the community programming such as tonight, and also a variety of support groups, individual, couple, and family consultation. And I am also a support for the religious school and First Sinai Akiva Day School. Okay, that's who I am. And again, welcome. Our program tonight will last about 1 hour, and Valerie and Emily will be able to answer questions after their initial presentation. Please feel free to write your questions in the Q&A. It will be monitored, and after the presentation, I'll be letting them know of the questions so that they can answer. Without further ado, I am so thrilled to be able to welcome Valerie and Emily to Sinai Temple to hear their story. But I also would invite everyone to reflect on our own commitment to include individuals, all individuals who live with differences and who communicate in unconventional and unique ways. So, Emily Grodin is an autistic young adult who is minimally speaking. When she was 25 years old, she began communicating via an iPad. For the first time in her life, she was able to share her inner thoughts, hopes, dreams, and reflections on her life with those who love her. She immediately emerged as a talented poet and essayist. Her memoir, which we'll be talking about tonight, I Have Been Buried Under Years of Dust, published in April of last year by HarperCollins, was co-written with her mother, Valerie Gilpier, details her struggles and journey as a woman with nonverbal autism. Emily is currently a college student studying journalism, psychology, and creative writing, and is a staff writer for her college newspaper. Emily is a proud advocate for herself and members of her community in an effort to dispel the misconceptions and non-acceptance of those who have verbal communication challenges. She has been recognized by the California legislature as well as the city of Los Angeles for her contribution to the community in October 2021. To the community, sorry. In October 2021, she was honored by the Learning Rights Law Center in Los Angeles with this year's Advocate Award. 2 of her poems were recently published in the winter edition of Solstice Literary Magazine. And I want to give Emily an opportunity to play her introduction and say hello to us this evening, and we'll hear more from her later. Emily?
Hello, my name is Emily, and I am a writer, poet, daughter, friend, student, and advocate for my community. I am very excited to be here to talk about our journey and the book with you all. It has been a challenge to get to this point, and I am very proud of how far we have come together as a family. The book has led us even further into our journey of advocating, and speaking on our experience is truly something I hope can help others. I hope that what we have collected and experienced and shared can offer hope and insight to readers and anyone walking a similar path in life. My wish is to inspire optimism and positivity in the experiences that we know can be scary and wildly unpredictable. They were for us, but maybe it does not have to be for everyone. This is just the start of what I hope to do in and for this community that I am so proud to be a part of. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. We're looking forward to hearing more from you later. I'm also very proud and excited to introduce my cousin Valerie Gilpierre. And just as an aside, I believe that Tom Grodin, also my cousin, is in the audience as well. Welcome, Tom. Valerie Gilpier is an attorney who has been practicing law for 40 years. She shifted her civil law practice 20 years ago in favor of representing families of disabled children, trying to obtain educational services from local school districts. She has continued to focus on disability rights law through her volunteer work with several nonprofit organizations in the Los Angeles area. Valerie and Emily live with Tom Grodin, Valerie's husband and Emily's father, in Encino, California. So I'm going to turn it over now to Valerie, say hello, and to begin your presentation for the evening. Welcome.
Thank you, Carolyn, very much. And thank you to Sinai Temple for hosting us this evening. This is the second time that we've been before a Los Angeles audience. The first time was a year ago actually on the launch date of the book on April 6, 2021. And this was the book. This is our book, I Have Been Buried Under Years of Dust. And we're thrilled to be here tonight to talk to our local audience again. It's been a while. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with the book or have not read it, we certainly invite you to do so, but I think Emily has given you a snapshot in her introduction about what the book is about. It really is about our journey from the time that Emily was diagnosed at age 2 with autism through the time that she really emerged as a writer at age 25, and everything in between. And the everything in between is the story of how we recognized so early on that despite the challenges that Emily presented with, that especially the verbal expressive challenges, that there was so much in her and so much that she was understanding and capable of. So in this book, we detail the interactions that we had in raising her, the whole time that we were committed to giving her the fullest and best life, keeping her included in school, keeping her included in her community, and all about the pushback that we had in doing so. Throughout most of Emily's educational history, most of the people who we interacted with felt that Emily would always have a very small life, that we couldn't expect very much of her, that her diagnosis and her disability were such that it would limit her forever. But my husband, Tom, and I did not buy into that. We did not believe that. And we fought for Emily to get the type of education that we felt that she was entitled to, and that in fact she was not only entitled to, but that the district was legally obligated to provide her. So we were really interested in giving Emily the best life possible. And her history of educational experience was met with, there were a lot of behavioral challenges, there were expressive language, certainly the expressive language challenges that she had were huge. And in many ways, that really interfered so much with Emily making progress and with people believing that she had as much in her as we believed. But, you know, we persisted in doing what we needed to do for Emily. We persisted in taking her into the community, traveling with her, showing a life, and fighting the school district as needed to get her the educational experience that she was entitled to, which it meant keeping her fully included in classes. In the long run, I really think that that exposure to education really paid off, because many years later, when Emily was actually able to communicate with us via an iPad, we discovered that Emily had been learning all those years. She had been taking everything in all those years. She had had learned how to use language. She had experiences. She had been listening, even though she hadn't been acknowledging necessarily. And that inability to measure how much she knew was really, I think, what baffled the people that worked with her in the school environment. And in some respects, it did us, except for the fact that we felt through her nonverbal expression, the way she would handle things, the way she would react to issues presented to her, that she was intelligent. So we knew there was an intelligence fundamentally there. It just was a question of proving it to the rest of the world. So this book is really about a lot of things. It's about not only the struggle, making sure that Emily was educated, but was also the struggle that we had with her behaviorally, proving her to the world. It was about trying not to normalize Emily in any way, but to improve her life so that she would have a better life, essentially, better than what was predicted for her. And so we went through this process, and as Emily got older and the frustration levels with her inability to verbally communicate increased, the behaviors and the physical reality of the behaviors became problematical, because they say that, behaviors are a form of communication. And when Emily was challenged in communication, she emerged even more so behaviorally, and that she was telling us something. And so, all during school, no one offered to us any possibility of any alternative form of communication, such as facilitated communication, which was ultimately what really was what saved Emily, essentially. Nobody offered that to us. We spent years and years with endless therapists, with endless behaviorists, with endless speech therapists, and we weren't getting anywhere. I mean, certainly Emily was taking in information, but the language wasn't getting any better, and it really continued to inhibit her ability to make progress in just about, every environment that we placed her in. Things really, I would have to say, came to a head when we kind of engaged in what I would call an experiment in Emily's future, trying to figure out what we were going to do once Emily was no longer with us, or we were no longer with her, I should say, and not able to guide her and interface with the world. And as process of next steps after she was out of high school, Emily attended a program at UCLA, which was a transition program. And the transition program was designed to provide services to individuals, getting them ready really to transition from their parents' houses and into the world at large. For us, this was an experiment really that amounted to also trying to figure out what Emily was going to need when we were there, like I said, to run interference all the time. And as part of this attendance at UCLA, Emily had an apartment, which we provided for her, and she was supported in the apartment with various assistants on a 24/7 basis. And we discovered during the course that she was living semi-independently with the assistants in the apartment was that the language challenges kept coming up, whether they were in the community where she might have an incident in the public, which was not understandable to people, or with aides. And honestly, what happened was that it became increasingly clear, more so than it had already been clear to us, but even more crystal clear, that Emily, we had to deal with this communication issue. We had to get our arms around what we were going to do about being sure that she could communicate in some fashion. So after, as the book details, so much of this is all in the book in terms of the incidents, the various problems that we had along the way, not only with education, but with incidents in public. But eventually, really what happened was that following a particular incident with an assistant in the apartment, which resulted in a cadre of police being called, we decided that we were going to end our experiment in independent living with Emily and bring her home and really try and figure out what we were going to do with this language deficit. How are we going to further address it? We had totally exhausted every aspect of speech therapy that we could. It wasn't going to happen. It was clear to us early that it wasn't happening, but no one was assisting us. Nobody was offering any alternative for us at the time. And again, remember, this was 25, 30 years ago. Emily is now 30. So she emerged as a typer, 5 years ago, and, got into the educational system in 1993, 1994. So this was a long time ago, where, there weren't as many devices available. The electronics were different. The communication methods were different. So we brought her home, and we decided that we would revisit what's known as facilitated communication. And I called a woman who is well known in the community, Darlene Hansen, who many of you who are watching may know of, who is a specialist in using alternative forms of communication, as herself a speech and language therapist in Whittier. And we decided to give it a shot, that we would see whether or not this is something that, although we had tried it before, whether or not it was a possibility for Emily, because we had no other alternatives. Right at that point, we knew that if something wasn't done, this would continue. Emily was not going to move forward. So Darlene sent somebody over, and the woman worked with Emily for 6 months, approximately 6 months, or actually I should say 5 months, and it was a lovely relationship. The woman would read to Emily, talk to her. They'd read stories. They had a wonderful time every Saturday morning for about an hour or so. And finally, Darlene Hansen came to evaluate Emily and see what the progress was and what she might be able to do. And she told us, Emily has too much language. Facilitated communication, which is, I will describe in a minute, is not going to work for her. And facilitated communication, for those who don't know, is for Emily, it's just somebody really sitting next to her with their hand, and you can see her demonstrate it later, next to her, just holding her shirt while Emily types out. It is controversial. I'll talk about that in a minute, but that's what it was for Emily. In any event, Darlene Hansen said it's not going to work for Emily, that she's got too much language. So, okay, that was okay. What we're going to do, the woman continued to work with Emily. And then we had this amazing breakthrough. We went on a trip. After this woman had been working with Emily for about 5 months, we were given the opportunity to go on a trip to Ireland with a group of individuals who have developmental disabilities. And I was absolutely thrilled to go on this trip because I had traveled with my family when I was young, and I thought this would be fantastic to take Emily on a trip. There would be behaviors there. There would be people to assist us. We went on the trip, and it was not so great. And what happened essentially was we came home. I came on in an airplane, up in the air, over the ocean, and Emily has truly an epic meltdown. And after that trip, we came home. Emily gets off the plane, and the next morning she sits down with this person. We called her and said, the person been working with her, and said, please come over. We had a rough time in Ireland. We had a rough time on the trip home. We need a break. We need a respite from what went on. Please come over. And so she did. And Emily sat down that day, and with her, she typed out, I have been buried under years of dust, and now I have so much to say. And with that, Emily's life was changed forever, and so was ours in every way possible. And this method that Emily uses, this facilitated communication, is something which has certainly changed her life, and is something which I think people need to understand is a valid and wonderful form of alternative communication that should be considered, along with a whole panoply of other forms of alternative communication, to anyone who has any challenges in verbal communication at all. Our book takes you through the time essentially that Emily began to communicate, and the very first steps of what communication looked like for her, and how it got her to attend college and to begin to make friends. But so much has happened since this book was published. Emily's world has really changed completely, and so has ours, because not only has her ability to communicate given her the ability to not only share how she feels about us, and to tell us how much she loves us and appreciates what we've done for her, which was really the earlier part of really some of the earliest words that she expressed to us, but also to communicate with the general world. I mean, she has speaking friends, she has developed relationships, she can be in a classroom setting and interact with her classmates. She can communicate in all environments, and also this ability to express her inner world through her poetry and her essays and her reflections on the world and politics and everything else. So there has been an explosion of her communication and her ability to let the world know who she is and what she's about. And Emily's life has been quite a struggle for her, many challenges. I mean, we've persisted and she's persevered. There has been so much that I really have to give such incredible hats off to Emily for, persisting, and also for, credit has to be given to Emily for allowing her story to be told, because this is a very, very personal story. It's a story not only of our struggle as a family, but it is also, her personal struggle. And there's two sides to this story, and we tell this story in two voices. So you hear not only from what was going on with me and Tom, but also what Emily was experiencing, because in the process of being in a classroom environment or being around other people, she was always hearing what people were saying, and she was feeling it, but she couldn't speak up and say, stop that, or I don't want you to do that. And no matter what I tried to say to people to try to control their speaking about her or saying anything negative, people didn't listen to me. So, I really think Emily deserves an incredible amount of credit for allowing people, for allowing us to do this book together, or participating in this book, and for letting the world know what she's been through. So at this point, I don't know if anybody has any questions for us, or Carolyn has some questions, a little bit more about what you want to ask us.
Well, thank you so much, Valerie. It's for introducing us to you, to Emily, and to your story. I have just a very broad question, and there are questions in the chat. So if I might just push a little bit, and then we can go, and I'll let you know what other people are in the audience are thinking about. Was curious if you could speak to what helped you personally remain such a steadfast and fierce advocate for Emily as you went through her childhood, meeting up with all of the judgments and obstacles the system threw at you. If you could speak to your personal strength.
Well, Emily always motivated me. I mean, our daughter Emily was the brightest light as a child, and everything was going pretty well for Emily until she hit that 18-month time, and there was a light in her that I couldn't and would not accept was gone. I figured it was once there, it's got to be there. And that's how I went forward with things. It's like, it's in there. She's in there, and I'm going to get her out of there. And that's all there is to it. And, I think also it's my personality. It's like, I just don't roll over. I mean, I will say that I was a little bit, I tended to believe professionals though at the time, and we were faced with so many new things. I mean, we were dealing with behaviors, we were dealing with speech and language, we were dealing with fine and gross motor issues. I mean, there were so many battles to be fought simultaneously, and we were trying when she was very young to put everything together. And so any parent of a child with a developmental disability will know that you're here, there, and you're everywhere, and your head is spinning, and there are people coming in and out of your house, and you don't know where to turn and you don't know what to do. But, at some point, and so there's a lot of listening to a lot of people. I wish I had stopped listening to some people a little bit sooner than I did. But that was trial and error, and we, that was, we all make mistakes. But we adored Emily. There was so much about her. I mean, like I said, her ability to solve problems non-verbally, her ability to give us a look of acknowledgement. There were just signs along the way, and I always felt that, looking in those eyes of hers, there was so much there. And so you can't walk away from that. I think when you know your child and you know what's inside, or what you feel you intuitively is inside, that you have to move forward. And that's what we did, because we believed in her. If I had felt differently about Emily, that there were extreme limitations and I may have accepted it differently, but I didn't think that was the case with her, because of the way she was in those first 18 months, because of the person she presented as, and the way she was. And, she was also very engaging in her, despite the fact she was nonverbal, she was always very engaging, very adorable. And that always brought us back.
Yeah, thank you. The whole, the connection is magical listening to you, that no matter that a parent and a child have this connection, and there's that special way of communicating, and then to have that frustration and to be dealing with the system, and then to see her emerge with the facilitated communication must have just been really miraculous, that the world could see what you'd always seen.
Well, it was extraordinary. And it was, when it first started happening, we were like, is this really happening? Is this really happening? I mean, Tom and I would look at each other, and we would sit through sessions when the woman would come and work with Emily and go, is this really happening? Then we'd record it. Then we'd look at it later and go, we don't believe this is happening, but it is happening. And it really is happening, so it was miraculous. I mean, it's such a joyful thing to see your child being successful. And, that's all that's happened since she started communicating in this fashion, is that she's been successful. I mean, her whole world has changed. And she's happier, and she's doing everything, I think, that, that she's doing a lot of what she wants to do. I think she wants to do more and different, but right now she's doing a lot of what she wants to do.
Absolutely. That's so great. I have one more question for you, and then if I can go to the chat. And I see that there are a few questions, but I really do want to encourage everyone in the audience to feel free to ask questions. We're going to hear Emily is here and ready to respond to questions as well. So just real quick, I know Tom is in the audience, and you just mentioned Tom, and this was a parenting journey that you took together. And I was just wondering if you could speak for a moment about how you grew as a couple in parenting and co-parenting, Emily, and the role that communication played in some, keeping you together in this common mission to give Emily the best life possible.
Well, we're pretty frank in the book that there were plenty of issues which emerged during the course of parenting Emily. I mean, but it would be not unusual for that to happen, no matter. I mean, I think Tom and I really were certainly at one, and we had a unity, I should say, in terms of wanting the best for Emily. I mean, she was always number one, and even when I thought that I was doing a great job of being, number one, handling everything and treating Tom and Emily equally, the fact is that Emily was getting the most of it, and that's all that there was to it. And Tom understood that and wanted Emily to get the best. So, but it wasn't that we didn't have differences. I mean, we were different people. We have a different style. We have a different approach. We have much different temperaments. It was really tough, but getting past the hurdle of this language, I think, has actually brought us even certainly closer now. But I don't think it was ever a question that we weren't going to stick it out and to be sure that we're giving Emily a really stable life, and a life of continuous love from both parents. And we've always made things work. Tom and I have always made things work in some fashion. Even when both of us were working full time, we still managed to get Emily to school and get her picked up, and work our schedules in some fashion to ensure that she got to services that she needed, and always had what we felt was a program that was appropriate for her. So yeah, I mean, I think that it was just Tom and I just really love each other, and we love her more than anything. So I think that that's really what motivated us. It's almost that simple. Just such pure, total love for her.
Thank you. So shifting now to the questions in the chat. This is a question from Jay Harwitt. Did you ever have a school administrator who was supportive? I ask as the former clergy person for Sue Rubin, the creator of the film Autism is a World. One day in the local supermarket in Whittier near the temple, I met Sue's elementary school principal, who told me he had helped.
Actually, it's interesting. There were, and there have been, people who've contacted us who were people involved with the school district. I wouldn't say that everyone was not on our side, but there was certainly there was hostility from certain teachers. I would certainly say that, yes, there were inclusion facilitators in the school district that were on our side, but they were up against their bosses and people in the school. I mean, in the principals, because the principals run the show. And if a principal pushes back, and having a student in a classroom setting, then, you're going to have difficulty. So we had inclusion people that were on our side. We did have certainly some administrators. There was particularly in elementary school, there was one principal who certainly adored Emily and was certainly very much helping us. But then as Emily aged, it got more difficult, honestly. There was a lot of pushback from middle school personnel and high school personnel, in places which I will not name, but which, which made it very difficult for us. And even though some teachers would try and get Emily into certain classes, the administration did often push back. So it was a mixed bag. It wasn't consistent at all. I wouldn't say that everyone was not welcoming of Emily, but there were many that were in power, I would say, who were very difficult.
Thanks. This is for Emily from Anna Barraza. She writes, Emily, what is your favorite poem nowadays and why?
I don't know that I have a favorite because to be honest, I don't read a lot of poetry. These days, it's text, books, and I don't know that I have a favorite because, to be honest, I don't read a lot of poetry these days. It's textbooks and articles.
Thank you. Just to let everybody know, we will be hearing one of Emily's poems at the conclusion of our session tonight. So, we'll look forward to that. The next question is from Michelle Taus, and she asks, can you please tell us more about who trained Emily in facilitated communication, how long it took to train her, and what iPad program she uses?
So the person who is local here in Los Angeles, who we originally started with, she had an employee who came to us, and her name is Darlene Hansen. And so she's a great resource for people that are looking to get started in this. As I explained before, Emily was working with somebody for about 5 months on doing facilitated communication. And Stephanie Lewis, if Stephanie wants to pop her head in there, Stephanie is Emily's communication partner now. But the process of training Emily, it was more like it just sort of happened. I have to say that when somebody knows how to communicate, or not how to communicate, but how to work with an individual, it sort of happens. For Emily, you know, she had the 5 months of an effort being made to do it. Other people can start almost immediately with somebody who has a little background in this. But that's sort of what happened, is that she worked with somebody, it didn't happen, and then all of a sudden it started happening. Emily can sometimes sit down with somebody and just immediately start typing with them, even though they have no training, or have just watched what Emily does with somebody else. So it varies. I know that some individuals get into it right away and others need more time to get started. But there's a whole ladder of training for people who want to become communication partners. It's some steps, and if you you know, get in touch with Darlene Hansen or reach out to me, I can give you her contact information, and that might be a good place to get started. She's the best known in the Southern California area for what she does. There's some other folks too that I can also share information with too about.
Great, thanks. Maybe this is a good moment to just let everybody know that if anyone would like to get in touch with you, Valerie, directly, they can, right, at your website,
Yes.
ValerieGilpierre.com. If you scroll all the way down, there's an opportunity to send you directly any kind of question or.
Right, there's email for my email is there, and Emily's is there as well, so people can just contact us directly.
Perfect, thanks. So someone asked anonymously, at what age do you recommend a nonverbal autistic child start facilitated communication training?
Well, you know, this is so interesting because Temple Grandin endorsed our book, and her quote is on the front of the book, actually. And she called me right before the book was about to be published, and to talk to me. And I had always understood that she was not a supporter of any form of really alternative communication, but yet what she said to me, and I think she's probably right about this, was that she believes that if a child is not speaking by the time they're 6, that you should give them an iPad. You know, that and see if they can use an alternative form of communication. And there's lots of forms of alternative communication. I mean, there's for Emily, and I believe I didn't answer this question before, as far as the programs, Emily types on just a plain iPad with no program. There are assisted programs called Co-Writer, various programs that do word prediction, as you will also find, I believe, in the software that isn't like in an Apple. And then she also just types directly on a computer. So Emily can use can type just about anywhere, and she can type on a phone as well. Yeah, so she doesn't really need a program. And that's an answer to the last person's question. In answer to this question, there's other forms that you can use other than an iPad to communicate. There are letter boards, which is essentially a laminated board, you know, which is essentially like the typewriter, which is laminated, and people do, it's called Spell to Communicate. Lots of forms. Spell to Communicate is another form. And some people just use the letter boards just to type things out. It doesn't record what a person is saying, so you have to have somebody who scribes it, but it's another way of a person spelling out what they're saying, and then it's it's essentially the words are put together by a person who's with that individual. So if you can imagine, I wish I had one with me. I don't have it right here now, but if the person would just point to the letters on this board, and then who's ever with them would then turn it into words and then sentences and phrases.
Okay, awesome, thanks.
But if I can say, I think any form of the whole point, really, the biggest point of our book is that whatever form of communication you can find is the form of communication to use, because there's just no question that being able to communicate is a complete life changer. I mean, we all need to communicate, and we as a society need to understand that people do have alternative forms of communicating, and that just because we valorize verbal speaking, and it is the most economical way to communicate, it isn't going to work for everybody. But that doesn't mean people shouldn't communicate. They have to communicate. You know, we have to know what people are thinking and what they need and what they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So here is a question from Rosita. Does Emily go to college? How does the college facilitate her learning and studying? Maybe Emily, do you want to field that?
Yeah, why doesn't Emily answer that? Do you want to repeat it? Emily, you want this question?
The question is, does Emily go to college? How does the college facilitate your learning and studying?
Yes. I have a very good relationship with my counselors in the disability office, but really my professors are so supportive as long as I let them know what I Yes, I have a very good relationship with my counselors in the disability office, but really my professors are so supportive as long as I let them know what I need.
Thanks, Emily. There's curiosity about what colleges support students who are using facilitated communication or may have nonverbal autism. There's Emily's school, or yeah,
Oh,
what schools?
there's so many of them. UCLA There, Emily has a friend who goes to UCLA. There's Valley College. There's Cal State. There's Cal Lutheran. I believe Cal State Northridge. There is a whole list which has been, and there's states. There are schools throughout the country. If anybody is interested, I can get them that list. But there's so many schools. Emily was at Santa Monica College. She's now at Valley College, but Santa Monica College, she was the first person there that used facilitated communication. They were astonished, but that's where she got started. And yeah, so they were supportive. The academic teachers tend to be extremely supportive. We had a little more trouble with the elective teachers, but the academic teachers were very supportive. And you know, as far as accommodations, when classes were meeting in person, I just add to what Emily said. I mean, she would basically take her exams in a proctored room, separate from the other students, so that she would have quiet space with her communication partner, and they'd be proctored so that they could verify that she was, you know, answering the questions. And it all worked out fine. You know, we with the exception of an art teacher, we haven't had any problem at all. She hasn't had any problem at all. They've been very supportive and very, very easy.
Awesome, thanks. So someone asks, is curious to what extent Emily can communicate verbally, if she has the ability, the skills to communicate verbally, or if she prefers to use the iPad to speak through typing.
Emily does have language, but she's just what they call minimally speaking, and she doesn't speak necessarily in full sentences. She speaks in one or two words. It's what you call more limited functional communication. If people read the poetry and the prose in the book, you'll see that what she's capable of is extraordinary. And of course, her poems. I mean, she writes poetry practically every day. Emily writes poetry. And of course, she writes essays, and she wrote, you know, if you Google her name at the Valley Star News, you'll see all the articles that she's written for the newspaper. So that sort of thing is committed to writing. Basic wants and needs can be expressed through language, verbal language.
Awesome. So we are kind of nearing the end. I have one more question for Emily. I want to be sure, Emily, that we hear what you would like to say to all of us in this audience about where you are now, how your life has changed as a result of the facilitated communication, and maybe a word about where you want to go, what your goals are. And then after that question, that's a lot. After that, we can hear your poem and say goodnight.
I think that communication is really the golden ticket to the world. So work for it. End. Please. You got it. Advocate. Power. Lose. Still. Finding. There. I think that communication is really the golden ticket to the world, so work for it and please advocate for those still finding their voice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily. I want to be mindful of our time. We have just a few minutes left. There's one more question. If we want to answer it briefly, I want to be sure everyone gets their questions answered, and then we can hear Emily's poem and say goodnight. I want to end with Emily's poem and with her voice. So I will just say thank you everyone for attending. I'll say this now, and please, I think that where to reach Valerie and Emily on their website, and also where to buy their amazing book should be listed, I think, in the Q&A or the chat. If not, please contact me at choffman@sinaitemple.org or contact Valerie directly. So the question is, what is the role of the facilitator?
So the role of the facilitator is really to provide Emily with encouragement and emotional support. That's all that the facilitator does. She just simply is there, maybe saying, you can do it, continue, whatever, and just to be there. And this has been historically a little controversial because so many people who work with a facilitator do the hand over hand, or at least that's what people believed was going on. With Emily, though, it's simply to sit there and to be next to her and to encourage her to continue with her words. And that's really what it is. That's really what the person is doing. It's a very minimal involvement. I'd like to think of it more of what you might call supported communication rather than facilitated communication or encouraged typing, something like that. I think is probably more appropriate than really facilitated communication. But that's sort of the words that are commonly used to describe what goes on. So I think Emily's screen has gone black. Let me see what's going on here so we can get her poem up.
Yeah. I think we can all use support and encouragement at different times in our life.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and play the poem, okay?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good night, everyone. I'm going to end. I'm not going to say anything more. We'll end with the Emily's
Thank you very
poem.
much for having us.
Thank you so much to Valerie and Emily.
A dream, something like walking in the shoes of a girl different from me. And the days that led me to this exact point, they have reason to stain my memory and disrupt my emotion. But I cannot deny and cannot claim that everything since then would not be the same had those moments not happened, though sometimes with tears down my face and the bubbling inside that pours into rage. It's just that some days have led to everything since then, and I would not be me if it wasn't for her, the girl who was silenced and hadn't yet heard of the things that were waiting on just the other side of frustration and anger and confusion inside. That eventually there could be another way, a better way to say what you need to say that doesn't involve a landed plane or red and blue lights and feeling afraid. Because everything since then is when life really begins, the everything that couldn't be if it hadn't gone that way for me. If I hadn't lived those struggles and times that clearly state and clearly define a human with too much to say, who clearly doesn't have a way. But it's okay. It's okay. Because of everything since then.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for
much.
being here. And thank you to Valerie for being
Thank you.
here. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you so much.